last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Without further ado, Glenn Guzman. Glenn.
Don't walk away from a deal just because it has a lien. Really reach out to someone in the municipality or wherever that lien's from. Our ultimate goal is not to be punitive, but to actually get compliance and bring that property back on the market. The liens are not the ultimate. What our real goal is always going to be is compliance. When we get a complaint on one particular property, we're also assessing the neighboring properties to make sure that they're also in compliance. You can't make a rule for everything. So some of these oddball situations, you need somebody there to go, oh, I can, take this round peg and put in that square hole. Make an offer. You never know if a municipality will just accept the offer. We're trying to make it work for everyone so that it actually gets that property back on the market. It's always going to come back to the conditions of bringing the property that you have the violations on into a commitment that we can follow up on to bring it into compliance.
Every municipality in each county has different rules, different regulations.
It's really going to start in the code enforcement place because they're the ones that are going to process those liens releases. Do your homework, but also reach out to us. That's why we're here. We're public servants. We want to help. So just be patient with them, and we appreciate that as well. And we're going to go the extra mile for you if you just have a little bit of patience with us to get you through the process.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, and appreciate the content that you are putting out there for us.
I am bringing you a special Al Nicoletti Show on the Road episode today, a super episode with another probate attorney in the Arizona and California market. And we are going to dive in on so many things in the probate world and some of the estate planning world. And I'm just so honored and privileged to be here today because this is the ultimate setting and the ultimate setup for us to have this conversation with the special guest. So I'm here in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's the Al Nicoletti Show on the Road. So, of course, I have to do my introduction. I know you all weren't expecting this. I don't think anybody was expecting an Al Nicoletti Show on the Road series to be here, but I got to do my intro because I got to introduce the guest, and we're going to have a blast. So here we go. Hey, everybody. I'm Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida. Well, I'm in Arizona today, but I'm in Florida. And welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show. And I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their community that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate and beyond, because we're bringing on amazing guests that get into all the other markets outside the state of Florida on how you can take your company to the next level. On the show, on the Al Nicoletti Show on the Road, I have a special guest, Rilus Dana. He is the probate attorney extraordinaire. A lot of the investors know he is huge in the sub-2 community. So if you're part of the sub-2 community, you know Rilus, and you know the value and knowledge that he brings to the game, helping a lot of the investors overcome real estate deals that are complicated or simple and really taking their level and their next steps to helping solve the deal. So without further ado, Rilus, welcome to the show on the road, man. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. I appreciate you bringing the show on the road. Coming into my space, but bringing the chic.
The chic, yes.
The mics, the cameras, the production. So this is great. So I love these topics. We've been chatting for a little while before the camera started rolling. So we so much to talk about. But such a fun area. It's cool to see the differences between the different states and the similarities, and what's working for other attorneys and other investors in different places, and so we can learn and get better.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of the audience doesn't even know. We've been sitting here for the last 2 hours just brainstorming as lawyers and seeing your side of the business in estate planning and probate, and just bouncing off, our systems and processes. That's another great thing to get into, how you can streamline better your systems and processes, not just as attorneys, but in the real estate world to make things more efficient. And a lot of people don't know, we were really getting into the estate planning side of things. So before we get in and dive in on the what is, the why is, the differences in Florida, the best leads for investors and real estate professionals, the best ways to overcome these, we got to know, Rilus Dana, how did you get here? I mean, what were you doing even before the legal world? What was your journey like during this and today?
Yeah, so my journey, it was May 1981. How far back we want to go.
Yeah, far.
So, but I would say we can start in college. So my dad was actually an estate planning attorney. So when I started college, I started working at his firm as a law clerk. So I got a look then, and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then I did a little homework. I realized that the mortality rate is 100%. That everyone's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
This baby boomer, that they're calling it the silver wave now, or maybe the silver tsunami, but a lot of the wealth is in that generation, right? That is going to be dying in the next. I think the peak of it, I've heard, is kind of the next like 7 to 8 years. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, this makes sense as an area to get into. And I studied in college, I studied business management because I felt like the legal profession was a little bit behind. Like, to be a good lawyer, I feel like the bar is pretty low, right? Like, there's not a lot of, traditionally, not good service, and they're not as organized as like, kind of like a, more of a traditional business. And I would even say the real estate investor community as well. So we were talking about how much we like the real estate investors. I've learned a lot about running a business from them, I would say, probably more so than attorneys, because they have more efficiencies, really good at outsourcing, automation. So trying to take that mentality that I see in other businesses to the legal profession.
Interesting.
So we were chatting some about, kind of my journey, how I've developed my own software and own processes. But I've always kind of had the mindset of, I wanted to become an attorney to be in the business of law. So I like being an attorney, but I would say I enjoy the business more. And that's probably that's kind of what we were nerding out before, right? About different procedures and how you operate a law firm.
For forms and systems and getting things streamlined so that it's a better way to run your business, right? Because so many attorneys, they'll use still the paper system, they'll still do intake. I mean, I'm still like doing my own intake, and then I see that system that you were talking about. It's just streamlining your business is huge, right? Mm-hmm. So you really love that business side to the legal world. How did you get from that part of it into more of the probates and the estate planning? Where did it really take off for you in that world? Like, how did it really accelerate?
Yeah, so my path, so I kind of grew up in my dad's law firm. So during college, I was working as a law clerk, so I got to see a lot of parts of it. And then right after college, after I graduated law school, as soon as I passed the bar, they sent me to run one of the offices. So at that time, he had about 10 attorneys and several offices throughout Arizona.
Okay.
So at that time, the main hub was in Scottsdale, and Mesa was kind of like the neglected stepchild, if you will. But anyway, they sent me, fresh out of law school. But I'd already been doing almost everything else before I had my license. So that was an interesting time because I graduated in business management. My goal was always to improve the business, and at that time, this was 2000. I started college in 2002, and then so I graduated law school 2009. The paperless thing had happened long before that, but again, law firms were behind. So I was wanting to move. I moved the whole Mesa office paperless. Right, I had everything scanned, and it's a lot easier to keep track.
At what point? What year was that you moved?
Probably 2010, I would say.
Wow, back then.
Yeah. So, and then they said from the top, they said, "Don't do that. We don't understand it. we want you to go the long way."
Right.
And that was kind of like the beginning of the end, you could say, at the family business. So what ended up happening, so we ended up kind of splitting off. My dad actually joined another law firm, sold the different pieces. So I got into the business side pretty quick. And I was also, I'm really grateful, I was privy to a lot of the business meetings early on. So even during college, my dad brought me to a lot of the, kind of the closed door meetings.
Right.
So I got to experience how things are really done. So, but there's nothing like actually doing it yourself, though, right?
100%.
Like you can have all the ideas of how to do it, and I know they tell you this in business. It's always like 10, 100 times more than what you think.
Yeah.
But no matter how prepared you are. But in developing my own firm, something that's really, I guess that I've kind of used as branding for my firm, or something to set me apart from other attorneys, is digital asset planning. So there was a law passed, Arizona passed it in 2016, California 2017, RUFADA, right? The Revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Asset Act. Such a mouthful. Yeah. And I know Florida has it too, we were saying. I don't know at what point they passed it.
Yeah,
but,
a few years back, 4 years back.
But so I got really excited, and I updated my estate planning process. I was like, this is really cool. We can finally, provide an update for this. And then I feel like that's kind of like our generation, like we knew life like before the internet,
right?
But we've kind of embraced it most of our life anyway. So it's like, I feel like we're well suited to kind of bring the old world into the new. So
yeah, I mean, you were going paperless in 2010, so like you're already seeing like the digital world and way in advance. So even on the estate planning side, what's going to be big. And I mean, I could probably get into all the crypto stuff and seeing what
I know, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm really obsessed with it because that's where it's going, right? I don't know exactly how that's going to work in the crypto, but...
Yeah, game changer. We didn't even plan on talking about that, but like, we can talk about that later too, but crypto is going to be a bigger thing when it comes to assets and what people have. Have you seen that more with people doing estate planning? And
yeah, and I would say kind of the first shift that I saw, so the way I became aware of this issue is when I was first just a law clerk back in 2002. I remember someone called and they said, hey, my parents passed away. How do I figure out what they own? I found this 20-year-old binder. They had a will, but how do I figure out what accounts they have? So I was like, ooh, that's a good question. So I went, asked the paralegals and attorneys. I was like, hey, what do I tell this person on the phone? They said, tell them to look around the house for bank statements. And I was like, come on, we gotta have a better answer, right? They called the law firm. I'm young, ambitious, like thinking, kind of like the caller, that the lawyer would have good answers. But like, no, like we don't know, right? Our records are also 20 years old. They never updated things with us. So what they would tell them is, if they can't find any bank statements, start getting the mail. See what comes in the mail. So I'd say this first trend that we've seen is less stuff is coming in the mail now, right? In the last 20 years, I feel like we've gone from paper as a society to more things are electronic, to the point where companies actually charge you now, right? A lot of them will charge you if you want to receive a paper statement.
Oh yeah, they're starting to do that. Yeah.
So I feel like that's the first part, right? Kind of seeing that. The crypto is the next, which I don't know exactly how that goes. But right now, the way I plan for a cryptocurrency, people that hold it, I treat it like cash, basically, right? Whoever has the password, whoever has the private key, controls it. So you just have to be conscious of where you leave that key. Yeah. Kind of like cash.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about that. Like, you got to really know where the code is, but you can't tell anybody where the code is, but you want to make sure you don't forget it, because you forget it, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? It's burned, or all those terminologies in the crypto world. But I think that's interesting because you were showing me, the documents and the estate planning side for digital stuff, and that's becoming huge. The NFTs are becoming huge. So the planning side for those things in the future are becoming more and more, right? So that's a whole other side of it, right? But
and I love talking to clients about it too, like all ages, and about the blockchain. And they're like, oh, well, what is that? Or about just kind of different concepts of it. But it's interesting. I would say all ages. There's older people too that know way more about it than I do. So
yeah, no, everybody's getting into that space now, and they're how to leverage it and how to use those kinds of things in their business, right? This world of real estate and probate, a lot of people think it's complicated, right? A lot of people think it's they don't want to get into it, right? They see these deals that pop up and they see the word probate and they're thinking, we're running away from it, right? And so over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been really able to simplify it, make it easy to understand, and also figure out a way to streamline it, right? So in your world, you're known for doing the probate stuff. You're the guy in Arizona and California, right? The whole sub-2 community knows, and everybody knows that Rilus Dana is that. So tell everybody in the simple words and the simple ways, like, in Arizona, and you can get into California too if you wanted to, but in Arizona, like what the probate system looks like, what it is, why is it, why do you all have to go through it here? And some of the things you were showing me before were like, the different types of, you can do the affidavits thing if it's a smaller estate, because they don't have that in Florida, where even if it's a piece of real estate, no matter the price, you're still going through probate. But in Arizona, if you have it under a certain value, you can do the affidavits, or if it's over a certain value, now you're talking about the ones that you and I have seen every day. You're filing things in court. Tell everybody like what that system is, what that looks like in that Arizona market.
Yeah, so probate, people just think complicated, right? Because it can take a while, the filings, but usually the attorney handles that, right? So as far as the public, what they need to know, it's just when someone on title is dead, right? That's basically when you start looking at probate. If there's an asset that is still in the name of the deceased. So in Arizona, the way it works is we look at the value of the asset. And we do have, I call them like probate substitutes or mini probate. So the magic numbers in Arizona is $75,000 for personal property. Mm-hmm. So if there's bank accounts and things that are less than $75,000, there's a real simple personal property affidavit that can be done to collect that instead of actually going through court. And I describe it sometimes as the in-between, right? It's kind of in-between probate because a personal representative is never formally appointed. So depending on what they're collecting, mm-hmm. and it's also, the law says it's permissive. It says companies can accept this, but they don't have to. So you may get some places that are like, we still want, the order from the court.
Right.
What is this weird Arizona affidavit in Michigan or whatever? If there's a bank account that's based somewhere else, they may not be familiar with it. Now, for real estate, if 100,000 is a magic number, 100,000 of equity, and the way you calculate it is with the tax assessed value in the year that you're going to file the affidavit. So even if they died 5 years ago, if they're calling you now and you're going to file in 2022, you would look up and see what the tax assessed value is. And if there's a mortgage, we get to subtract that. So if the assessed value is 200, but there's a mortgage of 150, then they would qualify for a real property affidavit, but you have to wait 6 months after the date of death. So sometimes they don't have that much time to wait. If there's a mortgage and there's payments and things accruing,
right,
they might not be able to wait to wait that long to get someone appointed. Now, if they don't want to wait, or if the assets are above the 75 or 100, California has something similar too. So California, they have substitutes. Their numbers are a little bit different though, but it's pretty similar. But I think it's 150 in equity for real estate and 100,000 for personal property in California. But similar idea. If it's less than that, there's a way to avoid the full probate. So for investors, I think it's good to know the timing of it. So first we got to know what is there, right? So we got to know what is there. Right. What's kind of the scenario? Do they have the time to wait 6 months? Is the value low enough, and either there's no mortgage or someone can afford to pay it until then? If that's the case, that's still our easiest option, to wait the 6 months. Now, if they can't wait, so if we file the probate either in Arizona or California, so let's talk Arizona first.
Right, yeah.
Arizona, a lot of times we can do what's called an informal probate, meaning if everyone's in agreement who the personal representative is going to be, they don't have to have a court hearing at all.
Huh.
So we get the beneficiaries that say that they're in agreement. So if there's a will that nominates someone, then that's usually controlling.
Right.
Or if there's no will, we get all the beneficiaries with equal priority to nominate that person and sign and say that they agree their sister can be the PR. We file everything with the court, and then it takes them about 3 weeks to approve it. It takes us on our end about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, typically. And then at the court, another 3 weeks to get what's called the personal representative letters. That's where they have the authority, but the probate's not done yet. So after they're appointed, we have to publish in the newspaper and start a 4-month creditor period. So any creditors can make a claim against the estate.
Do you have to?
We have to, every time.
Okay, it's required then.
Yeah. how does it work in Florida? I'm curious to know how the, or I'll take you all the way through Arizona
I'll give you
and
the
California,
differences.
and then I want to hear the difference in Florida.
Yeah.
But we can get them appointed. We'll publish the notice in the newspaper, wait the 4 months, see if any claims come in. Now, if claims come in after that, we can disallow them, which is nice. So a benefit of probate is it closes off all creditor claims.
Okay.
And then we can close the probate. Now, they have the authority, if they're trying to sell the house, they can sell it as soon as they're appointed. But the proceeds are going to need to stay in the estate bank account until the creditor period's over all of that.
Same.
But sometimes we're racing the clock, right? They're trying to, what's the soonest we can transfer? we got a buyer, they want to buy this property.
They're ready to back out right now. We got to get this done,
Yeah, so as soon as we get them appointed as the personal representative letters, we're sending that to the title company, like here you go, now you can complete that transaction.
Right.
Now in California, if you have to file a probate, like if it's above the minimum, you file to open it, but they always require a hearing. Even if everyone's in agreement, they always have a hearing. And as you can imagine, it can take a while.
Right.
In some counties, I'm doing something way up north in Shasta County, and I was surprised. A, that the judge wanted me there in person, and two, in 2 weeks was the next hearing. So I had to get my butt to Sacramento to Redding. But in like San Diego counties, I do more stuff in Southern California, San Diego, LA, Orange County.
But you can go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Anywhere in California.
Yeah, I'm licensed the whole state.
Wow.
So even though I'm usually stay in Southern California. So California, no matter what, even if they're in agreement, you have to wait to have a hearing to get someone appointed. Another big difference in California is they require an appraisal. They call it a probate referee that's appointed by that county.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. They've been interesting sometimes. I haven't done a ton of California probates, to be honest, because they're such a pain over there, where it's so time consuming. Usually I end up co-counseling with a friend in that county or someone to take it on. But yeah, you get your probate referee, and then the challenge for real estate investors, a lot of times they're the ones knocking on the door, kind of uncovering the situation. This house is in disrepair, but in order to sell it, it's still in grandma's name, but they don't have the money to do the probate, but they can't, it's kind of like they don't know where to get started.
Right.
But if that investor finds a deal, the court usually wants to see, at least from what I'm told, and again, this is mostly San Diego, Orange County. I'm sure it kind of varies, county to county, but typically they like seeing it sold to close to that appraised value.
Okay.
Otherwise, you got to explain to the court, why it did it.
Right. Maybe get like the repair list, get everything to figure out why it's substantiated at that price.
But in Arizona, really, it just comes down to the fiduciary duty. But we don't have to go back to the court. Because there's a lot of situations, again, another reason I like the investors, sometimes we have a house, we had a situation where it was a trust, the house needed to be sold and split like 5 ways, someone was living there, and at first I was told they were getting ready to get divorced, and then I heard that their husband and his mom moved in, like they're setting up to squat, like for the long road. And this was during the beginning of COVID too. So it was kind of questionable of what the eviction process was going to be.
Yeah.
So my client, the trustee, I'm like, here's our choices. Like, one is we're going to need to get a specific real estate attorney involved, to give the notice and do the eviction process. Or the other option I see is we sell it as is. As like we find a buyer that will take over that problem.
Right.
And what I like about that is it's not a sister kicking out her sister, it's a new buyer. So that's what we ended up doing. And they were really surprised, they got a knock on their door, they got the notice. They were like, we never even saw the sign go in the ground, we never saw the open house. But it seemed like their plan was just to squat there as long as possible, but we didn't even give them the opportunity. And I feel like, we don't have to report that to the court in Arizona, right? We don't have to report like, hey, there was a discount because of
why,
the situation and all those things.
Right.
So that there's a little bit more flexibility, I feel like, with the less. you always have the overarching fiduciary duty, and everything is being reported to the court. But in Arizona, they're not as I guess you could say they're not watching as closely, or you don't have to report all the steps.
Yeah, it seems very like a lot of oversight more in California than it is Arizona, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's just too much going on over there because simply everybody wants to get through the process and get it done and move on, right? And I mean, how long are you seeing California probates taking? Like more than 6 months, more than a year?
Oh yeah.
2 years?
Oh yeah. Like I would, again, I don't do a ton of them there, but I would say the average is probably like maybe like 14 months or so is probably what you should expect. And again, depends on the county, because like Shasta County, I see where they're like every 2 weeks they're ready to do another hearing, but like LA County, I know recently it took us like 2 months or 2.5 months to get the hearing.
Gotcha.
So if you have to wait to get a hearing, and California has a simple, you have to publish like Arizona.
Okay.
After they're appointed, you have a 4-month creditor period there too.
Right.
And then you have to have the hearing to get everything closed. And then if they don't like one thing during that hearing, you have to do what they call like a first and final report.
Okay.
But if the judge doesn't like anything, they say, change this and then come back. And that might be another 2 months, depending on just how long it takes to get hearings.
Is that for like simple probates?
Yeah.
Really? Like straightforward, like 4 kids ever, 1 house? Like you're talking like that period of time? That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's why I feel like it's a problem in California, because if the house is worth like less than $1 million or less than like, $500,000, it's not worth it for a lot of attorneys. They're like, this one investor, I helped probably someone in the sub-2 community. I was trying to help them find, a California attorney, because at first I'm like, yeah, that's too much. and then he talked to someone else, and then he said that he wasn't taking cases like this. And the investor's like, what does that mean? I was like, he just doesn't want to do it is what it means. It's just doesn't want to do it. So.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, the worlds in Arizona, California sound drastically different, right? And I mean, how fast are Arizona probates happening?
Probably 9 to 12 months, I would say.
Still that long?
If everything's smoothly, and part of it depends on how quick we get everything back from the client, right? Like how quick they give us everyone's address and doing all those things. But if it goes perfect, we could do it in as fast as 6 months. But normally it's like, I would say about 9 months, because maybe maybe it takes us a little bit longer to get it open, right? To get all the details. And then after the creditor period, maybe they're still waiting to sell a house, or maybe to clean up personal property or other things.
So it's crazy that you tell me like those time periods, right? California sounds wild. I mean, even the 6 month at a minimum is crazy. In Florida, the system I've been able to really see and get things going. I mean, we're able to do probates in a matter of weeks.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, like 4 to 6 weeks, maybe in one county. Every county's different, right? Like we'll see one county's like 2 to 3 months. Another county's.
So that's a slow one for you.
Yeah, exactly. Months. 2 to 3 months is frustrating.
They'd be like, yeah, that's so we can get it done quick.
Right. Or I would say, oh, that took so long, and you'd be like, that was fast. I'm like, it's all relative to like the states, but with Florida, it's just a more streamlined, or maybe it's just the way that the court systems are moving. I mean, they're starting to move more to the electronic, the e-filing more than ever.
Yeah, there's got to be a ton of probates in Florida, is my guess, huh?
Oh, there's a lot.
It's like the East Coast retirement, and everyone's going there now, right? It's like Florida and Arizona are like on the top of the list where people are going to, it seems like.
So you bring that up, and you brought it up in the beginning, and the great point about that silver tsunami, about why there's so many probates happening, is I have it on my chart. I have a PowerPoint, and on one of my PowerPoint slides, I have like the top 4 cities, and it's like Tampa, Orlando, Arizona's number 2, and then it has Orlando, and then Miami, and that whole crew in Florida. So we're talking about one of the biggest things that is about to happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years in both of our markets, right? And it's just, I think a lot of investors and real estate people can take a lot from what we talk about when it comes to solving these crazy situations. So How do you work through some of the more complicated probates that come through when you get when a deal comes in the office? Like, what kind of systems and things are going through your mind to try to figure it out and solve it? Maybe through the title end or through other things that procedures you can do?
Yeah, I like how you bring up title, and like the way I think about things sometimes, it's like, who's checking our work, right? It's like who do we have to do this for? Like what is the hang up? And that's it a lot of times, right? Is title, right? Like what do they need to see to prove that this person has authority to complete this transaction? And sometimes title, they're more conservative, right? If they're issuing a title policy, sometimes what they want is actually maybe like, for example, what I've seen happen a lot in Arizona, if the deed says husband and wife, period, is husband and wife, period, there is a presumption that it's right of survivorship.
Okay.
Meaning that their interest goes to the other. But it's written a little bit confusing. So I see some title companies, they'll want to probate because it says husband and wife and doesn't include the words rights of survivorship.
Really?
Yeah. Less now. But I've been able to get people to explain the statute, because there's a presumption against, right? So by default, it's a tenancy in common, so no rights of survivorship.
With husband and wife?
But if it says the words husband and wife, that is enough.
Okay, yeah.
But sometimes their legal department or whatever it is just kind of like. And then other times too, it's like one that comes up. I don't know if you've seen this or dealt with it. What if they can't find the trust? Have you had that? Like the house is in trust, because the deed is there and that was recorded.
Right.
But no one has a copy of this trust. Then what do you do?
Yeah. So we saw one of those cases. It never actually materialized where they wanted to pursue it because, when you get those where there's no trust, property's titled in a trust, and where is it? It gets complicated. You almost have to recreate it based on facts and circumstances and through affidavits of heirs, through the whole lineage. And one of I just did a video on this, like they'll all see it whenever it comes out. But two of the things that you can look up just in case you have a situation of no trust, we found this, is certificates of trust and abstracts of trust. So what we realize is sometimes the estate planning attorneys, when they do those, they'll record it. And so if you can't find the trust or you don't know who the trustee is, pull the public record of the recording documents, and the certificate may tell you who the trustee is or who the beneficiaries are in short form. And the abstract is what it basically sounds like. It's kind of a shortened version of what the trust is, and it could name the successors and beneficiaries. The thing that we see a lot, and it materializes, it comes out frequently, is the successor trustees not being nominated, right? Like it'll name the entity, it'll name the person that had the trust as the person that created it, and then it'll name the corporation as the successor trustee, but then they don't name any other successor. So, people think, oh, trust avoid probate, but now that you don't have somebody that's going to serve because the corporation doesn't want to serve unless it's a $10 million asset and it's a $100,000 house, now you got to appoint somebody. Now what are they doing? Coming back to us.
So once someone passes away, even a revocable trust becomes irrevocable.
Right.
So there's a statute in Arizona that provides for it, and attorneys came up with it like in New York. Jonathan Blotmacher, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's kind of like an old school estate planning. He was one of my dad's heroes, basically. He created a lot of these. I think it was like Jackie Onassis's attorney, and in New York. But basically, the idea is that if the trustee has discretion over principle of the trust, mm-hmm. they can use that discretion to actually amend the trust or change it. So that's kind of the theory. And then states like Arizona and California have clarified that you can do that. So that's one way we can solve that problem.
Interesting.
So we can decanting is a way where you can pour from one trust, into another one. So we can clean up those problems if needed.
Interesting. Yeah, because in Florida they have the revocable, irrevocable, right? And the revocable, you can still mend it while that person's alive, unless they make it irrevocable. Now you're going to have to either get the court involved and get all beneficiaries involved. But then, once that person dies, it becomes irrevocable. Now to make any of those changes, you got to either get the court involved and appoint maybe one of the beneficiaries as being that trustee, or if they got to recreate the trust, you need to find out as much as you can from everybody. So it's kind of interesting, to see the two, because those issues with properties titled in trust and overcoming them rarely come up. I mean, probate obviously populates more than it does that kind of situation, but those are interesting because investors do find those types of properties. Or the other one is where a property's titled in a trust, but there's a trustee and they don't want to cooperate with selling the property, and there's beneficiaries that they're like, we want to sell, and what are we trying to do now? And saying, hey, you have a duty to act on the best interest of the trust. You're not doing it. We're going to try to remove you. And a lot of people, the investor may come across that deal and go, well, we don't want to deal with that guy. He's playing hardball. Well, why don't we see if there's a possibility of who's next, right? And overcoming those situations as well. So I see it from that, like, how do you got a problem, how do you solve it, and what's title going to say at the end of the day? Because sometimes it's not even about the judge's decision. Yeah. It's like, is title insurance going to insure the policy, right? So I mean, those are things that we see in the real estate world all the time. The what, the why. I'm impressed of how big of a market Phoenix is. I mean, when I was flying in, I'm seeing the whole city. I'm like, whoa, this is huge, So there must be so much opportunities, and because of the pandemic and a lot of people leaving the other states, the market's only growing even more. So I could see how that has grown. There's more people really getting into that Arizona market. It's really interesting, right? It's really good to see some of these other cities that are growing that never once were that populated. Obviously that comes with its challenges too, right? Because you've been here for a long time, so you've seen that.
Yeah.
But Rilus, the other thing that we were kind of going over too, which was really interesting, is a lot of the time lawyers get the bad rap for they don't respond, they don't communicate, they don't know how to talk to a lot of the other real estate professionals, and to our credit, we do so much of this in our real estate communities in Florida. You're in Arizona and California. A lot of people are like, how do we find an Al Nicoletti, a Rilus Dana outside of those markets, right? Like in Ohio, or whether it's in New York or anywhere out there. How do we find somebody that's doing that probate world? Because I'm getting more connected to the attorneys out there. I don't know if they're watching right now, but the Vincents in Ohio, shout out to Paul and Adam Vincent, because these guys are killing that market in Ohio. They're not necessarily doing probate, but they understand how to engage and talk and do things with a lot of the investors or real estate community. What are you seeing as some of the best things that people can look out for? Because in my perspective, I think number one, you got to find attorneys that will call you back, will talk to you, are receptive to what you're doing in that real estate community, but also foresee a deal from start to finish, right? Not so much of the leads and the lead availability that they may have, but almost if there's a source, if there's a real estate deal happening, how do you get it done from start to finish and close the deal? Because that's what a lot of the real estate community wants to know. Close the deal, right? So communication, proactive thinking, being able to communicate effectively even with the sellers and the clients and everybody involved. What are you seeing as the best practices that they can look for somebody out of state as that attorney that can help work through deals?
Look for an attorney that is, number one, doing probate, in that area, and interview them, right? Like you have the client, and see if you want to, tell them what's going on, see how they work, see if they are responsive, right? When you call, what is the process? Does no one answer and you leave a voicemail and someone calls you 2 days later, or do they have someone that gets helpful information to you right away? Now, if you call my office, during the work week, I'm not going to answer. But during 9 to 5, someone should answer. I have at least I try to have at least 2 or 3 people that are on the phone so we can have a live person. And I have a really good probate paralegal who can give good, helpful information. She can't practice law, and she knows the right questions to ask, though, where she can gather everything for me, and she can send me an email or a text, and pull me in right away,
right?
So that we are responsive, so that they're getting help quickly.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously great. The responsiveness is key, and it's interesting. I got asked this about a year ago on one of the subgroups that April Giuliano was hosting, and she's amazing. I don't know if you know April.
Yeah, they're awesome. She's out here now, right? Or there's some Florida people that are out here. I'm thinking of Carolyn, maybe.
Okay, yeah,
I know her though.
Yeah,
through
April's
social media.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, so she got me into that group in that meeting, and I remember I was asked that question about what's the best way to connect with attorneys in my market, right? It's not Al Nicoletti, it's not Rilus Dana. Where do we find that, right? And at the time, I thought, okay, it's relationship building, and it's the trust and everything. And to this day, yes, that's the answer. But it wasn't until I was on another sub-2 group a couple weeks ago that it really hit me about maybe some of the statistics that you're looking for with these probate attorneys, right? What's the percentage of them working with investors? Is it 30%? Is it 70%, 80%? Because if it's 30%, I don't know if that might be the right fit, because they don't know how to work through those crazy, wacky situations, right? So the percentage of the type of investors, or how many, I think play a role, and this could be super helpful for anybody out there, in another market, right? Texas, or how many people I know in Texas that wish I was practicing there too, but we're only in our respective states. But the other was how much of their practice is probate, right? If I ask you, Rilus, do you do probate? You're like, yes. You'll ask somebody else that does probate, and they'll be like, we do that. There's a difference to me between, yeah, we do that, to I do probate.
And they're also doing family law and criminal
this
law.
And that. Yeah, because, everybody can juggle 5 balls at once, for sure. But, I think knowing that their practice is primarily in that, you ask me, it's 80 to 90%. Those are some things that in that interview style thing that you're talking about, which is great. I love that idea of feeling it out. Those are the questions I think are key.
Yeah, and I've helped a lot of clients find attorneys. I'm sure you have as well in other states, and that's what I do. I mean, I start on Google, looking, in that county or that city, and then see if they look nice from their website, right, as you do. Then you see who answers.
Yeah.
And if they don't answer, what do? You're calling the next one, because usually it's all right, I got 5 minutes for my next meeting. Let's see if I can hurry and find a North Carolina probate attorney, or I had to find, or whatever it is, right? Maybe someone to evict someone in Wisconsin, or. But yeah, see if they answer. Do they call back, and just what is the feel? And every relationship, it's kind of like a tryout, right? It's let's see if this is something where we want to do more business together, or is this going to be no, I'm not sending stuff to that person.
This is amazing. This is the Al Nicoletti, Rilus Dana super episode on probate in our respective markets, and the differences. Because in Florida, it can be super streamlined. I mean, that's the really interesting part about it. We have homestead, which protects a lot against a lot of creditors, not every creditor, and we have, we have the summaries and the formals, like I saw on the sheet.
That's right. I was aware that the Florida had the unlimited homestead exemption, right? Which is that's where OJ bought the big house there, and a lot of people will do that. But that makes sense. It carries through in probate, so you're.
Yeah, I mean that part gets interesting too, because you would find this. You'll like the nerdy side to the homestead, which is it's not necessarily unlimited, but where he bought the property allowed for homestead up to 160 acres.
Oh.
So getting lawyerly.
Is it different counties? Is that what it is? The counties?
They do it by municipality and unincorporated. So if that area is like city basically or a municipality and they got their rules and system, you only get 0.5 acres of protected homestead. So if your house is sitting in a municipality and it's 5 acres, only 0.5 is protected from Visa, MasterCard, Home Depot, all these other creditors. Forget Uncle Sam because that's they're going to get the money.
Yeah.
But the 4.5 is wide open for them to technically make a claim. It's crazy, right? So with what OJ I think had done is he had bought in an area that was unincorporated, so he gets the maximum area, or maybe he bought in that area and it was right up to the 0.5. But so many neat things when it comes to Florida homestead and like when it comes to the probate side of it, keeping most creditors from really having a claim. I mean, they can make a claim all they want. Do they have a legitimate claim? But then you get these ones where somebody died and in their will they left it to 4 kids, but then they also named a stepson, and that basically wipes out the use of homestead because now it's not going to blood.
Oh,
it's
interesting.
going outside.
Oh, wow.
So it leaves a wide open asset for creditors to make claims. So I don't know. The worlds are like really interesting. Like you were talking about, there's no homestead in Arizona, but in Florida,
there is. It's much smaller.
Okay.
It's only like $250, I want to say, or
Okay.
something like that, of equity.
Okay.
That protect. But it's nothing like that, and there's not like exceptions and other things. It's,
Yeah. So buy a house in 160 acre unincorporated area, right? Right up to that line. That's going to be huge. But like we can go on about all these differences. It's just really good to see that you're in a market that heavily goes through a lot of these probate situations that a lot of investors see, and I do on my end and what's going on. And it's good to finally get to connect after I've heard so much about you from Sub 2, Tristan, he's in Sub 2, and he's talked all about you. Before I even went on the Sub 2 community thing a couple weeks ago, he had messaged me. He was like, you got to meet with Rilus. You got to meet with Rilus. I was like, done. That's when I was like reaching out, like we got to get on the books and connect. But this has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you. Thanks for coming out, and we can keep the conversation going. So we can do other shows virtually.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep the conversation going.
Yeah, and so for everybody out there, let everybody know how if you have something in Arizona and or California, just know it's going to take longer in California. If you got a deal that pops up over there, reach out to Rilus. I mean, he's the guy. He's the guy that a lot of the high-level investors, Pace comes to, right? So how can everybody get in touch with you if you get those?
Yeah, so you can, rilusdana.com. You can find all my websites there. So I have a link to my law firm website there. That's my main one. And then also my YouTube channel is under Mott Legal. So I do a lot of content there for, I'm trying to educate, our client.
Yeah.
I call it empowerment is one of our core values, as opposed to kind of the old school law way was to try to confuse, I think. They try to purposely make things hard. But part of the reason I'm talking to you today and I like creating content is because we want to empower our clients, right? We want to teach them,
right, and
then let them choose how to work.
Yeah, educate, and explaining it in a easy, taking a complicated subject and simplifying it, and that makes it all the better, right? If you can make it into a simple format that people understand, they're going to be on it. Right, they're going to understand it. They're going to want to pursue it or make them more acceptable to doing that kind of stuff. So, Rilus, I mean, this is fantastic. I'm glad we got to do this in the office. This is Rilus's a studio here. This is amazing that we got to do this. We got the whole setup going, and
thank you for bringing the production, and I appreciate it. So I have my mics. We didn't even use them. Sheik's got us all mic'd up.
Yeah, we got everything here. Yeah, no, cameras, it's been great, and the TV and everything. So hey, we'll do it again. We'll make sure this is only part 1 of Al Nicoletti, Rilus Dana. Like, this is amazing. We love to see, what different worlds, what's happening in respective worlds across the country.
Yeah,
so
and it's great. I know I've recommended you through the Sub 2 as well. People are like, we need a Florida attorney. And they're like, Al's the guy. So
Thank you. No, likewise. I mean, we know a lot of the people and the attorneys that are really focusing in those markets. So it helps to know there's Rilus. there's Al, there's all these there's other attorneys out of state. You know, and do you know a couple other attorneys that are out of state? Like if there's somebody in Kentucky or Tennessee?
Depends, not always. I could be better, but it seems like relationships change, right? Like I might have a good Washington attorney, and then 2 years later, but you know, sometimes it's a few years before I need someone in that state again, and maybe they moved on or.
Yeah. Well, hey, this has been great. This is only part one. I can't wait to do this again, and you know, keep furthering the conversation, building the relationship. I mean, this is amazing that we get to do this in person. I mean, first time meeting Rilus, and we get to do it in person and do a show and get to connect on all these like crazy, cool issues that are happening and the systems and processes in our world. So, hey, again, pleasure. I love it, and you know, let's stay in touch and stay connected. And you got to come to Florida.
Yeah, it's the same. Maybe the next time we'll be out there. One of the next times I'll have to.
I got my studio there. I mean, you know, come out there.
We'll do the Mont Legal show from Florida. We can do the reverse.
There you go. There you go.
I got to bring a sheik though, or something.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I love it. We'll stay in touch, and you know, we'll look forward to it and have fun.
All right, thank you.
You got it. And we'll wrap this up like I do on my show. If you want more content like this, make sure you go on the Al Nicoletti YouTube channel, the Al Nicoletti Facebook business page, the personal page, and you can find Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti, where all the content, whether it's talking about probates, quiet titles, partitions, and all the micro of the great guests that we have on the show. Check it out there, and you can find the Al Nicoletti Show. It's on Spotify, iTunes, and I think it's on Google Play. Somebody just told me it's on Google Play. I didn't even realize that until like 2-3 weeks ago. And you can find all the great guests from Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, and the special episode with Rilus Dana. So until next time, and we'll drop a question if you have one. We'll make sure we get it to you. Until then, see you next time. Thank you all for tuning in, and it's a wrap. See you soon.